Hey, welcome everybody to the strange and scary mysteries of the month for April 2023. We've checked all around the world and come up with some of the most interesting and creepy stories to share with you today. In this episode, we begin with an alarming update on the scary rate at which artificial intelligence is developing and how many of our top minds are saying we need to take a break before it takes over. Next up is a true crime case of a suspected truck thief who got tracked down by the owner and suffered dire consequences. We'll then dive into the story of a couple in Australia who reportedly captured a supernatural occurrence on their home surveillance cameras. And following that, a dentist who poisoned his own spouse. And topping it all off is a semi-feel-good story of a kidnapper who messed with the wrong kids. Here are the strange and scary mysteries of the month for April 2023. Number 5, 6-month pause on AI development. Artificial intelligence is accelerating so rapidly that most people aren't even aware about exactly what is happening behind the scenes. AI has radically transformed human lives in a short amount of time and in numerous ways. Everything from the way we communicate and produce products to automated transportation and education. Every day, more and more jobs and tasks are being transformed by AI. And while we're so excited and busy about taking advantage of this, some of the biggest names in AI development are raising the alarm about the impending dangers of their own creations. In an open letter published just last month, personalities like Elon Musk, Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak, and members of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists urged a pause for at least 6 months on the development of AI systems. And the reason? These advanced tools, if left to propagate, can pose profound changes in the history of life on Earth. Whether it's a good change or a bad change, the letter insinuated that it could very well be the latter, since they said that advanced AI can pose risks to society and humanity. This is not science fiction, it's not a possibility, but an inevitability. That if we don't put in place checks and balances on AI, then literally, before we know it, it could simply cause massive problems to everybody on Earth. The proponents of this campaign said that if left unchecked and unregulated, these non-human minds could easily outnumber, outsmart, and make us obsolete. And if that's the case, then we risk losing control of our civilization as we know it. One of the worst scenarios, for example, is that companies, in a move to save money, might resort to building robots or computers that are endowed with such incredible thinking capacity that they become superior to humans. These machines then begin to replace people, which they already are doing in terms of jobs, and at some point decide that the very people that created them are getting in the way of them reaching their true potential. As a result, they would seek to get rid of us, and to do so would be easy. For instance, it might engineer a deadly virus or steal nuclear access codes. Banking and finance security protocols could be hacked and overrun. AI could then have access and control of our digital assets. If it wants to, hacking through media and the press would be a breeze for AI. Once inside, it could then concoct and circulate misinformation, further spreading chaos to the public, which is already in a frenzy. Scary? Definitely. Impossible? Not at all. In light of this situation, more than 1,000 proponents in science and technology, including Musk and Wozniak, have called out in a campaign to freeze any further development and deployment of these digital minds, at least for the time being, until we can fully understand, predict, and control these so-called entities. And they reiterated that technology at this scale should only be allowed to propagate when we can guarantee its positive effects and establish risk parameters. If anything, we should also have a contingency plan that we can execute if ever things were to get out of control. All of our lives are online nowadays, attached to computers and the cloud. If a more intelligent being, whose mind is literally made up of the internet, like, say, ChatGPT, decides to make a move, then they can do it quickly and easily. Number 4. Truck thief gets tracked. Just this past month, a family truck was stolen from a residential neighborhood in San Antonio, Texas. Distraught, of course, by what had happened and wanting to get the truck back ASAP, instead of waiting for authorities to take action, the victims came up with a better solution, something that was much more swift and efficient. It just so happened that the owners had installed an AirTag in the car. An AirTag is a tracking device developed by Apple with the primary purpose of helping people locate items like luggage, wallets, and even remotes. As small as a quarter, this gadget can be easily installed to virtually anything you may want to keep track of. Hence, this family didn't want to lose their pickup. So in this case, it was a smart decision, but how everything transpired after the vehicle was stolen is pretty crazy. It was around 1 in the afternoon when an unidentified person broke in and stole the truck. Shortly after, the family realized it and reported it to the police and even mentioned having the tag in it so they knew where to find it. But authorities had protocols and were sort of dragging their feet on the situation. And needing the vehicle to go about their day-to-day business, they decided to go get it themselves. Didn't take long for them to locate it in the parking lot of a shopping center right across town. An eventual police report revealed that the owners confronted the suspect whom they found inside the missing truck. One of the family members said that he saw the thief pulling a gun on him. He quickly reacted, pulling his own weapon and then opened fire on the suspect, believed to be in his 30s. That man was later on pronounced dead. As confirmed in the report, only the victim of the theft fired any shots, and investigators have yet to find out if the deceased indeed had any weapons on him. It hasn't been confirmed also if the alleged shooter will face any criminal charges. From what we can gather in this case, it seems clear that vigilante justice was served. Whether or not it was justified, we'll find out soon. Number 3. Ghost of dead relative captured on camera. Ever since the use of commercial and residential security cameras have become more mainstream, many people have claimed to capturing some supernatural occurrences. While it's hard to prove whether these are real or not, for a couple in Australia, they are certain they caught the image of a dead relative on theirs, and the video is hard to refute. Earlier this year, the video went semi-viral as it showed what is believed to be a ghost of a family member walking inside the house. When it happened, Matthew Kane and his wife Lauren were about to go to bed, and it was their habit to review the day's footage taken by their motion-sensitive camera. They didn't expect much, the sort of mundane footage they'd delete over to make room on their external drive, but what they saw completely freaked them out. In the video, an ethereal shape seems to walk out of an antique cabinet in the room. The Kanes reveal that this cabinet is filled with souvenirs from all over the world. And beyond that, it's the same piece of furniture that they store the ashes of their deceased relatives and dead pets in. As shown in the video, the mysterious figure has a perfectly round head, and as it walks forward, leaves behind a trail of light. What makes it even stranger is that the apparition seemed to be walking alongside their living Australian Shepherd dog before it vanished in a flash. It moves fast and is clear to see, and terror overcame them the first time they saw the footage. But after the initial shock wore off, they said they felt no fear about the ghostly figure, truly believing that it was a loved one just saying hi. And the dog didn't act strange during the encounter either. It didn't whine or tuck its tail between its legs, which led Matthew and Lauren to believe that the entity could be a relative or a family member to whom the dog had once known. What drove them to post the footage online was their desire to find a logical explanation of the phenomenon they witnessed. In a statement, Matt said he's usually skeptic towards such things, but the clarity of the video is so much so that they knew it needed to be shared. Number 2. Dentist poisons wife. James Craig was a successful dentist who co-owned a dental clinic in Denver, Colorado. And most of the staff and even some clients at Summerbrook Dental Practice sort of knew that Dr. Craig had been dealing with some marital problems with his wife, Angela Prey. They'd been married for decades and had 6 wonderful children together, but Mr. Craig had a bit of a dog in him, which he fulfilled by having multiple extramarital affairs over the years. Mrs. Craig, still though, was devoted and loyal, and while she knew what he was doing, instead of splitting up with him, she chose to remain by his side and even forgave him many times for what he had done. Callous to her suffering, the 45-year-old dentist continued on with the awful treatment of his spouse, but he didn't seem to care, and even more so, actually wanted her dead. According to an affidavit, James had been trying to kill Angela by lacing her food and drinks with poison. This he did for many years, and sadly, his efforts paid off and the poor woman passed away recently in 2023. As expected, the reason behind all the madness was his intense desire to be with his mistress. You see, months prior to the tragedy, James had been courting a woman named Karen Kane. Kane, an orthodontist based out of Texas, was in the final stages of divorcing her husband, whom she had a couple of children with. In a series of emails exchanged between the two, it's apparent that they were into each other, as their messages were, as investigators had put it, intimate in nature and contained sexually explicit conversations. And then, a terrible thing happened. On March 6th, Mrs. Craig was rushed to the hospital for severe headaches and dizziness. Hours after being admitted, she went into a seizure, and her health began to decline rapidly after that. She had been vomiting violently, and her vitals dropping drastically. And due to extreme headache, she said she couldn't even focus her eyes. She stayed in the hospital until she ended up in a practically vegetative state. On March 19th, Angela was taken off life support after she was declared brain dead by her doctors. The couple's family and friends suspected foul play, and so a homicide investigation was launched. Detectives found from the husband's internet searches that he had been watching YouTube videos on topics about how to make poison and what kind of poisons are hard to trace. Meanwhile, his secretary told police that days before Angela was hospitalized, a package had arrived at his clinic. Accidentally, the parcel was opened and found inside was potassium cyanide. Curious, the employee Googled the substance and realized the symptoms matched up with what the boss's wife was suffering from. Investigators believe that the dentist laced his wife pre-workout protein shakes with that poison. And it was also discovered in Mr. Craig's transactional records that he actually booked Kane for a flight from her hometown to Colorado around the time that Mrs. Craig was admitted to the hospital. To put it simply, the killer was flying his lover in while his wife, the mother of his 6 children, was going through an agonizing death at the hospital. With the evidence and testimony stacked up against him, Aurora police wasted no time in arresting poor Dr. Craig for the murder of his wife, whom family and friends remembered for her undying commitment to her children and loyalty to her only beloved man. Number 1. Kidnapper messed with the wrong victim. It was supposed to be just another Monday for the residents of Gaithersburg, Maryland. Adults were going to work and the children were headed off to school. At a bus stop on Town Crest Drive, children hung out along the sidewalk waiting for their ride heading to Redland Middle School. When all of a sudden, a man grabbed and pulled one of the kids away from the crowd. He then dragged the victim towards an apartment building nearby. The perpetrator, identified as Jamal Germany, didn't even attempt to be discreet about it. As such, plenty of people noticed the commotion, taking a moment to even understand what was going on. It was a group of fellow students who ultimately got brave and decided to intervene and rush to the aid of the victim, managing to overpower Jamal, who wasn't expecting a fight. The kid was able to free himself, and upon the arrival of the bus, the students, including the victim, quickly boarded and informed the school staff about what had just happened. The incident was then reported to the police, who immediately arrested the suspect on that same day. An investigation soon followed, and it was found out that the 30-year-old would-be kidnapper had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Due to his circumstances, the man wasn't able to get the meds or much-needed mental health assistance. In an interview, his family said that Germany has 2 children of his own, and having known the man, they knew quite well that he'd never hurt a kid, so it was a shock to them to hear that he had attempted to abduct someone. During his interrogation, Jamal said that he had no problems with any of the kids, but he was supposedly paid $1 to look out for the victim and make sure that he was well. But police quickly ruled out the information, considering that he had been making incoherent statements regarding the incident. For this, a presiding judge ordered the suspect to undergo a mental health evaluation. Meanwhile, school officials confirmed that the victim is safe and unharmed. Concerned parents, on the other hand, convened to craft security measures that they want to implement in order to safeguard the well-being not only of the students, but of the entire community as a whole. So, some scary stories there for you guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want more, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/scarymysteries. You can get access to over 100 other videos. We just did a crazy one on 5 dangerous social media influencers. So check that out if you guys want more from us. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.